You want a trophy?
Hello and welcome to a very special, very technologically focused version of Midlife Krisis. We are doing this live via satellite, like they used to do in the Ed Sullivan Theater. So I will be bringing in my my partner, my muse, and my special co-host. But before I do, I want to take a little break ski and just say thank you to everybody who has been joining our channel, subscribing, commenting, all that stuff. We are experiencing some growth right now. It's very exciting. And we are going to live up to this growth, I think, by creating really cool pieces of video content, such as the one that's going to happen here. So without any further ado, I'm going to go ahead and throw up my main man in the field live via satellite. Here he is, Uncle Bob Bear. There he is. Go ahead and say hi to the people, Bob.
Hello? Is this thing on?
This is on. This is all the way on. We are doing it. We're doing it.
We did it. We did it. Yeah. So I'm really happy with the growth lately. Things are looking up for this show. So keep liking, keep subscribing, keep interacting with us. We really appreciate it. And we will keep delivering good content for you, including with this show.
Very much so. And this is, I can tell you already, I'm having the time of my life playing with the amount of buttons I need to play with to make this happen. So already we're off to the races here. So the other reason why we're recording remotely like this is because something pretty big just happened. And we wanted to get as close as we can to live, which we'll never be able to accomplish. But this is the next best thing, right? I'm assuming you know that we're talking about the Game Awards, but we're going to put a pause on that, and we're going to rewind it a little bit because another really gigantic thing in video games just happened, Uncle Bob, and that is the GTA 6 trailer came out. For my point, I'll just say this. I was floored by that bad boy, and, without getting too blue, and I do want to remain respectful here, the
family show.
It's a family show. The butt jiggling technology that Rockstar Games has implemented in this version of the game is absolutely impressive. So before I talk a little bit about GTA, because I mean, out of you and I've got a lot more serious experience than you do, which I want to talk about briefly. But I'll just say I'm blown away by it. I'll have more comments, but I want to throw it to you, my man in the field. Talk to me about how you felt about this trailer, and where you are at as a GTA fan.
Sure. So a couple things. One, I totally agree with you with the butt jiggling physics that was implemented into the trailer.
Yes.
As gameplay footage. And I really like the idea that there is an entire room full of people over at Rockstar working tirelessly 16 hours a day to get that just right.
Just pitch perfect.
Which they did, yeah. The other thing that's kind of neat about it is that a lot of internet heroes have gone and compared the GTA Vice City trailer to the GTA 6 trailer to show just how much video games have progressed in the 22, 23 years since Vice City came out. And that's pretty fun to look at as well. And then the third thing that I thought was hilarious is that there's also clips online where they show the shots that are taken from the GTA 6 trailer and they compare them to actual events that have happened in the state of Florida.
Yep.
Like the alligator walking through the 7-Eleven or whatever, and then just people acting crazy on the beach, like all that stuff. So that's pretty fun as well to see that, as only Rockstar can.
Right.
They are combining, they're taking things from real life and then putting them into the game in a really awesome way. So I'm pretty excited about it. And then in terms of my history of GTA, I'll say this. I played GTA 1 and 2 in a garage, thanks to show producer Chris introducing me to them. And then I did not play any GTAs after that because GTA 3, GTA San Andreas, GTA 4 for sure, all came out during the WoW years.
Right.
And GTA 5 was not on PC for a long time, so I couldn't play it. And then when it did come out on PC, I just had other stuff to play. So I will not be missing out on this game. I will be there. I will be playing it day one, a year and a half from now when it actually comes out.
Right.
But it'll be my first actual GTA experience. Oh yeah, and then one last thing. I am a little disappointed that I missed out on GTA 5 because the a courthouse that I frequent as an attorney is featured in that game. The courthouse in GTA 5
That's right.
is based off the Compton courthouse, which I sometimes attend. And let's just say that as somebody who's gone to that courthouse a lot and has a lot of vitriol for it, the things you're able to do in GTA 5 are anyway, I missed out on some things.
Very therapeutic, I think is what you're
that's right.
is what you're getting towards.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I could have exercised some therapy with that game.
Gotcha. So okay, it's for you. You missed the series because you're. The bulk of the WoW years, all of your WoW years, I think all of these games came out. But my question to you, Uncle Bob, I am very genuinely curious. Why was it hearing the millions and millions of people play these games and talk about these games? Why didn't that ever motivate you to get in? Because to me, so like, I think that there's two modern video game series that they transcend like so far into the mainstream that there are people that only play these games, and that's Call of Duty and Grand Theft Auto. So I totally understand you not playing every Call of Duty game ever made. I certainly haven't. There's been some down years in that franchise, but by and large, every single GTA game that's come out has been like pop culture defining, like real big tentpole things, and I think it's one of those unique things where it is so popular and so ubiquitous, but also deserving of that. Like it's just so well done. And like, yeah, there's controversy, and as time and progress moves on, like some of the things that they've done in the series, like you can certainly examine it with a different set of lenses. But the fact that they keep pushing and going forward, and this new one obviously looks like Florida Man the Simulation, tells me that they're still pushing forward with it. So why do you think it's never drawn you away from what you were doing to get into this series earlier? And then I do want to mention real quick, I started playing GTA 4 on the Steam Deck, and brother, that's so much fun. It is so much fun to play that game portably, and it runs at 90 frames a second because I have the newfangled OLED Steam Deck, and I haven't played that game since 2008, so it's like playing it all over again, brand new. So little sidebar I wanted to mention about GTA, but I'm going to throw it to you. Why did you not get into this series?
Okay, so there is an answer here, and it's kind of multi-layered. The answer is that at a high level, GTA games are not really my kind of game. It's not my genre. It's not my first choice. It's not my second choice. I'm an RTS guy. I'm a tactics guy. I'm a strategy guy. Like those are my preferred genres. However, you make a good point, which is like, well, sure, but sometimes some games are just so ubiquitous or such a part of the zeitgeist, such a part of the pop culture, that if you consider yourself a gamer, you should play them to just experience the content. It's absolutely true. And I would like to kind of go back and to play them again. However, I have this bias that's come up on the show a couple times towards modern games or current games and against older games. It's not a bias that I really, that I'm like proud of. It's just that if given a choice to play something that came out in 2008 and something that came out in 2021 or 22,
right,
I'm going to pick the newer game.
Got it.
And that's just like so for me to go back and play the older GTA games, I would have to run out of new games to play. And it just seems like there's never any end to the new games to play that I'm interested in.
Right.
So that's one part of it. So that's the second part of it. And then the third part of it is just those games are not, well, you tell me. I think in my head, they're 40 to 60 hour games to beat them all the way through.
Oh, they've gotten much larger. The PS2 series, so Grand Theft Auto 3, Vice City, and San Andreas. The first two were, if you wanted to 100% everything, which, I mean, I'm talking to you, so obviously you would, probably 50, 60 hours. San Andreas was huge, though. San Andreas was like 80 to 100 hours to do everything. 4, I would say around that ballpark, and then 5 is even bigger than that. 5 to do everything in the game, and that's not at all, speaking nothing about GTA Online, which is still making like $1 billion a second.
Right.
That was also a huge game as well. So, I mean, like that's a barrier of entry for sure. That you would have to understand that these are super long games, which you do. So I get you not going back. One thing that you did mention, which, when you put it into succinct words, it always like kind of reminds me how different you and I are when it comes to the games that we play. for me, like I always find myself wanting to go back and like I play currently just like you do. Like I love modern games as they come out, but I almost dare I say like just as much have the interest to go back and check out things that I missed. So like yeah, when I ask you dumb questions like, hey, why haven't you played Majora's Mask? Like I have to remember like, oh yeah, it's because he just doesn't do things like that. So it makes sense.
I would though, if I didn't have a Steam catalog of like 100 games,
Right.
80 of which I want to play and 60 of which I really, really want to play.
Right.
And none of which I actually have played. So it's hard, man. I mean, we are spoiled right now. 2023 was a really good year. And I'm still relatively new into consoles again. You forget, dear friend, that 2017 was my first console in 15 years with the Nintendo Switch. And then 2020 with the Xbox and the PlayStation, that's my first foray into PlayStation games. I haven't even beat Ghost of Tsushima yet. That's still on my list. There's still like some very highly rated, highly reviewed Game of the Year contender games just for the PlayStation that I haven't played yet. So I really need to get through all of that before I start thinking about Majora's Mask and Wind Waker and GTA 4 and some of these other Hall of Fame games.
Well, you did it to yourself. You were a user and an abuser, but you've stopped using. You've gotten off the sauce.
Yeah, that's right. You don't judge me, Brian. You don't judge me. When somebody gets clean, you don't remind them of the sins of the past.
You're right.
Just be happy that they got clean.
You're right. It's the victory of the journey. That's exactly what we need to celebrate here. Okay, so yeah, GTA 6, biggest thing in the world right now. I will say though, what I think I'll echo the sentiment of almost everybody out there. When it flashed 2025 at the end of the trailer, I let out an audible, "Oh man," and we'll talk about this in the Game Awards thing, but they announced a new Monster Hunter as well for 2025. So it's like already now I'm in for like 200+ hour games, which I don't really have the attention span for anymore. So it'll be tough. It'll be a fight.
It's the every other year thing though. 2024 is smooth sailing. So you just go into hibernation for the next 12 months and then we get hyped up for 2025.
You heard it here first, folks. 2024 is smooth sailing. So, okay. I want to shift gears a little bit. So we this hasn't aired yet because this is going to come out first, but I think our last two episodes that are coming out in 2023 are about our picks for Game of the Year. I chose 5, you chose 5. So that's upcoming content. But so for now, because this is going to come out before that stuff, I mentioned that Resident Evil 8 in VR was one of my games of the year. I firmly stand behind that. So spoilers. But Resident Evil 4 on VR, which just came out as we record last night or 2 nights ago, buddy, it absolutely blows the doors off of Resident Evil 8. It is, dude. It's so good. So I'm about like 4 or 5 hours into it, I think, ish, around there. And I keep when I play, like I keep just going for it because it feels so good. And so Resident Evil 8, like graphically, was really, really impressive, and that's why I think it's one of the more immersive VR games that you can do. But Resident Evil 4 ups everything. So graphical fidelity is better. The sense of immersion is better. It is really like the most impressive thing that's on the PSVR 2 right now. And I know, friend, it's a challenge for you to play a game like this, but I will say this. Yes, at times it's terrifying, and you will probably jump out of your skin here and there. Only here and there, though. Because Resident Evil 4, and take it from someone who's played that game like 35 times, it's an action game. So there isn't a whole lot of jump scares. One thing that it does that Resident Evil 8 also does is when it tells the story, it flips to 2D, which is a complaint. I don't like that. I think it breaks the immersion a little bit. But beggars can't be choosers in that this, just like Resident Evil 8's VR mode, is a free update. So if you bought this game recently on Black Friday for like $25, like you are getting this in fully featured VR mode for free. So hey man, I'm going to say Capcom is probably the best VR developer out there right now with just those 2 games, Resident Evil 8 and 4. And I'll throw to you, champ. Do you have any interest at all in demasculating yourself in front of your family like I have when it comes to playing Resident Evil.
You said specifically when you played Resident Evil 8 in VR, you audibly yelped a few times in front of your family.
Oh yeah.
And okay, so then how does that exactly compare to your Resident Evil 4 experience? Would you say Resident Evil 4 is more or less scary?
Okay, so for what I played so far, and one of the things that Capcom does with all these remakes is they don't just remake the game fully 1-to-1. They kind of add some creative license in there. So there is some stuff that I'm going to see that I probably haven't ever seen before in Resident Evil 4. So that being said, maybe there's something ahead that's going to be scary. But so far, like everything that I've seen is more or less on par with the original Resident Evil 4, just way, 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 way better looking and in virtual reality. In Resident Evil 8, that game is it's pretty campy the whole way through, also very action oriented, but there are segments in that game that were legit terrifying. I think in our VR episode, I talked about that House Bien Viento, or I will never be able to pronounce that right. So don't even worry about it. Okay. But anyway, that's the part where I played it in front of my wife, and I kind of yelped, and got on a chair, not unlike the mom in Tom and Jerry cartoons. But yeah, so far I haven't seen that in 4. I don't think it's going to happen in 4, but you never know. One thing I will say, so I talked about the 2D cutscenes and how that breaks immersion a little bit. The other thing that they do, and I don't think this is all that bad. So, but it's weird, and when I explain it to you, you'll be like, "What?" So in Resident Evil 4, just any version of Resident Evil 4. There was like a melee attack that was pretty famous. So like you would shoot a bunch of people, and if a group was coming at you, you could do like a context button press, like giant roundhouse kick and knock everyone back. So in VR, you figure like, how do you do that? Like, do you actually do a roundhouse kick and hurt yourself terribly? Well, it would be great.
Tell me.
Well, it doesn't do that. What happens is the camera like pulls out and goes into third person. So you're behind Leon when you see the kick, and then as soon as the kick is over, you go back into his head. It's a little weird, a little disjarring, but again, aside from what I just said of letting me do a roundhouse kick and hurting myself, which Capcom thought better and said no, we're not going to do that. So yeah, that's a little weird thing, but other than that, man, it's absolute primo stuff.
Well, I was going to play the game until you mentioned the lack of roundhouse kicking. Yeah. In it, and so now I think I'll just hold off.
Okay, that's fair. And I'm gonna go ahead and say it's very big of you to to be that self-aware. So kudos to you, friend. Okay, So let's move on. Let's go to the main event of why we're here. We watched the Game Awards, which was what, Thursday? This past Thursday.
Yes, it was.
So this is going to be coming out on the Tuesday following that Thursday, if you catch what I'm tossing. So we're several days past the live viewing of this thing. So that was my first Game Awards. I didn't watch all of it because, just full disclosure, I forgot that we were doing that. But I did jump on at I think 5:30. So I caught I think more than half, maybe half, because it ended at a little past 8.
You caught more than half. It started at 4:30.
Okay, so I kind of want to go tit for tat on this, just because you're so much more kind of in the know when it comes to these Game Awards. So first of all, let me say I don't know anyone other than you that watches this thing. Now, what I will typically do is I read the video game news like any grown adult would do, and I would catch up with the news, the announcements and trailers and whatnot, kind of whenever I had time to do it. So I've never watched this thing live. So you tell me, how many of these things have you watched live, and where does this show rank amongst those ones?
Okay, so first, I actually attended the Game Awards in 2019. Somebody we know is a developer, and I was with them at the show. And Green Day played.
Oh, that's cool.
So check that off the list.
Yeah. Your ninth grade self was, I'm sure, very happy.
Definitely. Very, very, very happy.
Yeah.
And then the last 2 years, I've watched every minute of all 3.5 hours. And then the year before that, I watched probably half of it. So I would say just recently in the last 5 years, I've gotten into it. And only in the last 3 years have I really made it a point to watch everything. And in terms of how this compares to that, I would say this year's was on par with last year's.
Okay.
Maybe a little bit worse, but pretty consistent. If you liked last year's, you would like this year's. If you didn't like this year's, you definitely want to watch last year or any other year. It's just it just is what it is. It's like I tried to introduce MMA to a friend of mine once, and I showed him a really good show, and he was like, "It's just not for me." It's like, hey man, look, if it's not for you, it's not for you. But this is the best representation of this thing, so it's okay if you don't like it. That's kind of what this year's version of the Game Awards was.
So yeah, as a lifelong lover, admirer, and researcher of the king of all sports and America's #1 export, professional wrestling. I do understand where you're coming from. I cannot in good faith expect other fully grown adults to have the same love and admiration that I do for that sport. But yeah, I get where you're coming from. But I will take a brief minute to lightly shit on this award show, if you don't mind, just because it was my first one. It was my first one, and I have some notes on it.
And I'll just sit here whimpering.
Quietly
to myself.
Okay, it's not that bad. So okay, one of the reasons why I never paid any attention to this stuff is because like my idea of the Game Awards is like the Spike TV version of the Game Awards that was on for a long time. So I never watched one of those shows beginning to end, but I remember like tuning in, and it was very like barbed wire tattoo, slamming Mountain Dew, kind of, you know, like italicized, fast moving graphics, like that kind of thing for the majority of it. So that always kind of turned me off. And when you talk about Spike TV, it's one of those things, it's like, need I say more? So that's what always turned me off for all these years. But I will say it's cool. So I think it's cool that video games get this kind of thing. And it is, you could tell they spent a lot of money on it. They being Jeff Keighley and whatever production company he does. They do spend a lot of money on it. They make it a big deal. There's a lot of production value, all that stuff. I think that the Game Awards is well, you're covering there. There, here we go. Right there. It's right there at the line. It's right there at the line where they could totally make it a little bit more prestigious feeling. Like, I get what they're doing with it. It's nonstop announcement trailer, like all that stuff. And I know that that's why people tune in. I get it. But I think if you want to say that this is the representation of the Academy Awards for video games, which that is a separate argument that I would maybe one day want to have, where I don't think video games needs something like that. But again, we'll table that discussion. Or if it does need it, it needs to be done in a different way. I'll say that. That's better. I want to leave that message. Because this one, it seems so like it's such a commercial event. It's such a like tune in and be advertised to for 4 hours. And for like, I told you on a text, like I'm not doing that again. I'm not going to be advertised to for 4 hours straight. It's not going to happen.
Doing that again.
And the one, and like, look, obviously bias plays into this. Like most of the games that they showed, which we'll get into, you know, what we liked and what we didn't like that was shown. But most of the games that were shown aren't games that have any interest in at all. And so when I'm being bombarded by these trailers, it's like, you know, you're showing me a bunch of like shitty flavors of Shasta when all Daddy wants is Tiki Punch, and I know I want Tiki Punch. So all you Shasta heads out there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But so those are my main things. There was a musical performance for Alan Wake, which I was texting you about, where like it was so community theater and cringy, but I don't know if that was the intention of it or not.
Yeah.
If it was intended to be that way,
neither of us have done yet.
Yeah. If that was the intention, most professional thing I've ever seen in my entire life. If they were trying to do that and be serious about it, ooh, yeesh. But yeah, that was one of those things where, like going back to wrestling, like when wrestling does something like really, really embarrassing, at times I feel like I need to closet up my fandom there. I kind of felt that from that part of the show, as far as being a video game nerd, it was like, oh boy, no one can know that I like this stuff. But yeah, other than that, I'm gonna let you go. You can tell me what you think about the show, or whether or not you want to, point me on what I think about the show. But I'm turning it over to you, Guy. Go for it.
All right. So yeah, I have a lot to react to there. So first, The show last year, I just looked this up, had over 100 million streams. I don't know how much of the show you have to watch to count as a stream. I doubt it's all 3.5 hours, but it is growing in popularity by leaps and bounds every year. So in terms of just trying to grow the audience, they're definitely doing something right. Again, that was for last year. I'm not sure how well this year compares to last year. I haven't seen this year's numbers yet, but 100 million streams is pretty big. And if you compare it to something like the Golden Joystick Awards, which is also a semi-prestigious awards event, almost nobody watches that or watch that. And the media of the awards got out, and it was known that Baldur's Gate won like 7 awards at the Golden Joystick Awards.
Oh, real quick. I got to cut you off real quick because I need to do this. This is for me. So here's my impression of Jeff Keighley. Okay, here we go.
Okay, I'm ready.
Baldur's Gate 3. Congratulations, Larian. I'll do that again one more time because I had to hear it a lot. Baldur's Gate 3. Congratulations, Larian. And that was it. That's my impression of the video games show or the video game awards. Go for it.
Oh, Brian. Who hurt you, Brian? Who hurt you?
A lot of people.
So, yeah. All right. So anyway, so the show is obviously, as an event, it's a very popular event. Now, why do I tune into it? The game announcements, of course. I care 90% about the game announcements and trailers and 10% about the actual awards. And you could say, like, well, hey, man, can't you just check out IGN or any other website 20 minutes after the show and just see everything that was announced? And the answer is yes. But this is the same answer I gave when you asked me why I had a Twitter account,
right?
Which is, it's like, well, yeah, you can just wait 20 minutes, or you can be on the absolute bleeding edge of information and find out the minute that it happens.
Do you still feel that way, by the way, in this new X era? Do you still feel like it's necessary to have it?
I actually do. And it's funny that we're having this conversation on a Sunday, and yesterday, the biggest free agent in the history of baseball, Shohei Ohtani, signed a $700 million contract with the Los Angeles Dodgers. It was like the biggest sports story. And you better believe I was sitting there on my keyboard hitting the F5 over and over and over again.
Right.
Well, I was actually on my phone while my family was picking out a Christmas tree that it turns out was too tall for our ceiling. And I'm trying to refresh to see where this free agent is going to sign.
More on that tall Christmas tree putting holes in your ceiling, please, and less about baseball. Because that sounds pretty interesting.
I'll tell the Christmas tree story in a minute, but to button up the baseball thing, it's just that is where the bleeding edge of information is. So yeah, just literally yesterday, I got information from Twitter 30 minutes before I got it on ESPN, and there was a value to me for that. I'm also the kind of guy who goes to a movie theater and enjoys the trailers for the movies, which are explicitly advertising as much and sometimes more than the actual movie that I'm going to see.
Right.
I just like that. I like, the next big thing and like, hey, do the, and like hype stuff. I'm all about all of it.
I like that stuff too. Don't get me wrong. Like it's fun to get snowballed into the hype, but like 4 hours of it, that's my deal. Like it's so much that they all, and especially when a lot of the trailers like look the same to me. Like, so for example, in the 2.5 hours of the show that I saw, I think I saw like 8 trailers of a man or a woman in like a technology suit, and looking like that they were like in a bad situation and it was like the world against them. And then it had like some kind of breathy name, like light a flame or like be my darkness or something like that. But
it's so true.
It's 4 hours of it. It's 4 hours of it. So that's
I
why
know. It's 4 hours of it. Bro, you got 4 hours of that. 4 hours of new games, all promising you that you'll light a flame or cast a fire.
Okay, so essentially,
how awesome was that?
Right. Essentially, 4 hours is your 4 hours.
Can it be 6 hours?
Okay, I get it. Again, we are different people, and there's not a darn thing wrong with that.
So look, I'll say too that first of all, that criticism is just chef's kiss, man, because it is a perfect criticism that you are 100% right about. Some people though, like me, are just shameless, and it's like, yeah, that's what's going on, and I'm here for all of it. I want all of it. Give it all to me.
All of it.
Yeah. Now, separately though, there's a whole bunch of game developers that make indie games, and you're kind of hit or miss on a lot of indie games, but a lot of them announced follow-ups to hit indie games yesterday, and I was really into that. So the guy who did Inscription, which was a fantastic game that was nominated for some Game of the Year awards a few years ago, he announced his follow-up game. I think that was early on in the show. It may have been before you started watching, and it looks kind of in the similar ethos as Inscription.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool to see that. The developer of Ori, which hot take is, I think, the best platformer outside of anything Nintendo has made.
Ori's really
ever.
good. Both Ori games are fantastic.
And so they announced their next game. So it's like, I'm obviously excited for that. There's some ex-BioWare developers who said they're making an RPG. That was one of the future suit games that you're talking about.
Right.
So, that seems pretty cool. So stuff like that, I'm all about it, man. It's like, oh, these guys who made Ori and now they're doing something else and you're showing me what that something else is. Cool. The No Man's Sky developer, they revealed their next game.
Yeah.
So, that looks pretty interesting.
Yeah, that does look really interesting. I've played a little bit of that game in VR, going back to a little earlier conversation that we had on this episode. So I never really got into it until I started playing it in VR, and it kind of clicked a little bit more. But when I played it not that recently, it was like maybe a month ago. It on PSVR 2 is very choppy, and so I kind of got out of there. Not a great experience. I know that they've updated it since then. And I know that game is like infamous for updating a lot all the time for like the past decade.
Yes.
Yeah.
For free and all free.
All free
updates.
I do want to go back to that game and see if they've smoothed out the frame rate on PSVR 2. But yeah, that game, and maybe we can jump into it here, but that game was one where I was like, okay, like that, I will try that for sure. The other big one for me, and this comes to, should be zero surprises here. But that batch of Sega games that they announced, buddy, that was you want to talk about Midlife Krisis and how to market directly to us.
No kidding.
So, but here's the thing about the all right.
So say the 5 games first. Say the 5 games.
So it's Crazy Taxi, Golden Axe, Streets of Rage, Shinobi, and Jet Grind Radio. So of all of those, I'll just say right off the bat, I think the one that has the shot of being the best game, overall best, well-made product, best game, I think is going to be Jet Grind Radio or Jet Set Radio, whatever they're calling it. That game, first of all, little piece of trivia, that game is the first cel-shaded game ever. It was on the Dreamcast. Great game, great look, very fun, worked well with the Dreamcast controller being single analog, all that stuff. A bit obtuse at points in the game. You kind of would get lost here and there. And then, of course, there was a sequel on the original Xbox, and then nothing. Since 2002, they haven't done anything in that series. I was just reading this morning that the original main people, like the main artist and the main designer, are back making that game. So it's like a whole, it's like a new take, but with like old blood. And then I think a big initiative about this whole thing, it's something similar that Nintendo did with Mario Wonder, but Sega is mixing old guard development with young, like fresh out of school developers too, which I think is such a cool idea, because it's like you kind of get what the pulse of the now is with like the expertise of like all those decades of history of making those classic Sega games. So all that being said, this is Sega we're talking about. So like that's hit or miss, just in and of itself. I love the Yakuza games a whole lot, but like you look at a lot of the other games that like the Sega proper games like Sonic, stuff like that, bit of a mixed bag historically, ebbs and flows there for sure. But yeah, I think Jet Grind Radio probably has the biggest shot of being the best. And I mean, quite frankly, all those games could be awesome. And I very much want them to be awesome. Because
they're all beloved.
Oh, they're all beloved, and we grew up with them, so, and it's cool to see Sega doing that. Like being like, you know what? Like we do have this history and this legacy. Let's just try some stuff out. And to announce 5 games that reminds me of like the Capcom, I think it was the Capcom 5 or the 4, the GameCube one. That's where Resident Evil 4 came from. It was Resident Evil 4, PN number 5, Killer 7, a game called, I think it was Dark Phoenix or Dead Phoenix that never came out. And then one other Capcom game. So it feels like that. It feels like they announced like, here's this bunch of games that's going to come out over a period of time. And hopefully they're all good. But what about you? What were some of the announcements and trailers that really jammed you up something good? And yeah, I'll stick with that. Jammed you up something good.
So that Sega thing I actually was excited about. That is one of those areas where, again, the Venn diagram of you and I, there is overlap there. I love Crazy Taxi. I played a ton of that when it was in arcades.
Oh yeah.
Shinobi, obviously, we all grew up with Shinobi. So I'm looking forward to all of those games. The biggest pop for me probably was the God of War Ragnarok DLC. They announced that, except that they showed the DLC, and I was like, oh my God, God of War DLC. Like, this is great. But I thought it would be a story-based DLC, and it comes out on Tuesday, and I think it's not a story-based DLC. I think it's like a roguelike arena kind of thing that's not going to develop the story at all. So that took a little bit of the shine off of it. Yep. But at least in the moment, I was very excited about that. So obviously Monster Hunter, just because I know how reputable those games are.
That's where I was going to go next too. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I've listened to you talk about Monster Hunter, and they said that was the last reveal.
Yeah.
So obviously they knew that was going to be, they saved it for that spot for a reason. So that got a huge pop for me as well. And then the last one that I'll mention, and we talk about more about Monster Hunter if you want to, but the developer that made Dead Cells, another beloved indie roguelike platform, hack and slash platform or whatever, they announced their next game as well. No gameplay, but they announced the game. And so a lot of these games I'm talking about are really just developers of games that I like,
right,
talking about what their next game is. And so I get excited because it's like, well, you made a thing that I like. Now you're saying you're making something else. Hopefully I'll like that too.
Well, it's like your team. They're your team, and they make the things that you like, which is, you know, like the sport game. So I totally understand it. I'm actually looking at a list right now. The announcements, the new Secret of Mana game from SquareSoft. It's like, okay, I forgot about that one. That was another one.
I'd like to go back into that world.
Yep.
Yeah. And then so first party Sony, they announced a release date for Rise of the Ronin, which had been previously announced. But when they showed the trailer for it, I thought for a minute it was going to be Ghost of Tsushima 2 that they were announcing. And I was like, oh man. But then it's this other game that's sort of similar, but not.
You know, I'm going to say, so Ghost of Tsushima, that's Guerrilla Games, right? Or is it Sucker Punch?
No, Sucker Punch. Guerrilla is Horizon.
Okay, well, I'm going to say this anyway. I want a new Killzone game. I don't think you've ever...
No, you don't get that because they're going to be making Horizon games for at least the next several years.
Right.
And I'm not going to let you get a new Killzone game because I want them to always make Horizon games. Those are my favorite games.
But I like weighted, methodical shooters.
Not everything's about you, Brian. This is about me.
That's fair. You're right. That's fair.
What I want.
You're right. And that's why we're such a good team. We recognize how selfish we both are. It's an important skill that we both possess.
No doubt.
Okay, I want to talk about Monster Hunter. I want to go for it. And maybe we spend some time and then we'll do some final thoughts at the end of this and do some signing off. But for me, Monster Hunter, I've talked about it on the show before. I tried to get into it over and over and over. Basically since they started coming out over in America. None of them ever really clicked with me until Rise for the Switch. And then after Rise, I went back and played Monster Hunter World, which really Monster Hunter World is what, that game in a lot of ways is really, really important for Capcom. Cause number one, it sold a bajillion copies, but number two, it came out at a downtime, like a pretty low downtime for Capcom. And it is credited for, there was all these rumors about, Microsoft buying Capcom. And
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. And Monster Hunter World being the hit that it was it was almost like if you go back, 15 years ago when Take-Two was almost bought out by EA right before GTA 4 came out. And then GTA 4 came out and Take-Two was like, no, you're not going to buy us.
We might buy you. How about that?
Yeah, exactly. So it's not quite to that scale here, but Monster Hunter basically kept Capcom's lights on and filled those cash coffers up so that now we're enjoying, the Capcom fans like myself are enjoying all of their awesome output that they've been doing since Monster Hunter World. So with that on the plate, like this game, to me, one of the things that I love about Rise is you've got the mobility. Like that's one of the reasons why it clicked with me so much is like you can zip around, you've got grappling hook mechanics, and you're on this dog that runs around super agile. That was obvious in this trailer. I didn't see the zip stuff, the zip wire they call it in Rise, but you're definitely riding around on a dog. So mobility is going to be, I expect it to be on par with Rise. And then the other thing about the trailer that it looked like it's going to be more of an open world than past Monster Hunters. so Monster Hunter games, like you have like a map, and then there's multiple maps, but like maybe 3 or 4, and then a big expansion comes out and adds like 2. And within that map, there's like these different areas. And so Rise made it so that you could kind of walk without loading into these different areas. Previous Monster Hunters, it was like you would go out of an area and then like, game would load and then you go to another one. So it had a lot of breaks. This one looks like it's like almost Breath of the Wild open. That's the vibe I got from it, the sense I got. And PAL, I think combining a Breath of the Wild with the addiction that Monster Hunter gives you in terms of the combat and the loot drops, man, if you're not out there with us this time, all right,
I'll be out there, friend.
There will be hell to pay, and I'm glad to hear it. But give me your thoughts as someone who I have over the years tried to bully into playing Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
Why is this one the one where you're gonna be on there day one with us?
Okay, so first, I really value getting in on the ground floor of something if I can help it, and if I miss the ground floor, I'm liable to just miss the whole damn thing. Just like I did with Elden Ring.
Oh, yeah.
I missed that, so I could play callback a Horizon game. I don't have regrets about that because I love that Horizon game, but I haven't gone back to Elden Ring. It's a gaping hole in my resume, and when the Elden Ring DLC hits, I am going to play it then because that'll be the ground floor at least of the DLC, so I'll go back and try it. So Monster Hunter, what's the ice one? The Monster Hunter that's on PlayStation that got the expansion. That's an ice-based expansion.
Yeah, that's Monster Hunter World Iceborne, I believe is what it's called.
Iceborne.
Yeah.
So that I actually had once I got my PS5 as part of my subscription, but I was playing all these other games. Monster Hunter, this is another one where there's like a barrier to entry because you're being told it's like an 80-hour game if you really want to get all the content out of it.
Right.
So it was just a little bit off-putting. Now, to your credit, you did try to get me to play the Switch one. We played the demo of it. I did not buy the full game. Just too many freaking games. But because this is such an event, because they saved the reveal for last, because I know these are really highly reviewed games.
And because Danny and I have consistently bullied you since Rise came out.
So it's the triforce of all of these many things. I will be there. We will have a launch party. Maybe we'll get content out of it for this show, but I will be there on day one with you. We will go on monster hunts together. I cannot wait. I'm looking forward to it, even though I've never played the game. That and then the GTA 6 game of the same year.
Yes,
2025, man. Look out, game.
Yeah, boy, oh boy,
because here we come.
We're shaping up. I can't wait for them to announce Shenmue 4 coming 2025. Yeah. It's gonna be great.
Just for you.
Okay, so closing thoughts on the Game Awards. I'll go first, and then I'm gonna let you wrap us out of here, champ. It was better than I thought it was going to be, based on my admittedly ignorant and biased takes of Game Awards past. I appreciated to see the production value, and I did appreciate like seeing games kind of get like their moment. Probably would have appreciated it more if this was on, like a big channel, even though that kind of doesn't matter anymore. It just feels like it matters. Look, the Oscars are on network television. That's what I'm saying. So if you want to be an Oscars like show, and the video game industry has a lot of money, they could do this. They could rally together and like make this a bigger show, give it more pomp and circumstance. Hire some of those celebrities that they brought out, like they were so like, hey bro, I'm a gamer just like you. And like, that shit works on a lot of people, and I understand why it's done, but it doesn't work on me, and it like makes me kind of cringe a little bit. So less of that. Give me more diverse trailers, less people in spacesuits with funny sounding names for the game title. But yeah, this could have been a lot worse. I was expecting to be worse. It was all right, but dollars to donuts. I'm not gonna watch another one of those. At least that amount of time that I spent, which was like 2.5 hours. So those are my closing thoughts on the Game Awards. Go ahead.
So tune in next year for my solo show reviewing the 2024 Game Awards.
You'll be wearing like 7 free T-shirts while you do it.
Yeah. I enjoyed it just like I enjoy it every year. I think literally every criticism that you've made in this episode has been just spot on. And by the way, the celebrity criticisms, you're not alone in that. Social media was all abuzz complaining about the same things that you're complaining about. And on the one hand, last year, I don't know if you remember this from last year, but the voice actor for God of War, he won and gave an 8-minute speech, and they actually had to play him off last year. So this year they went too far. They overcorrected, and they were playing people off after like 30 seconds.
Oh yeah, I definitely noticed that.
Right. So there were complaints about that. So it's like, oh, you got to find a happy medium here. Nobody really likes all the, like, there's a bit with one of the Muppets, Gonzo, and like that just wasn't really resonating with people who were viewing. Everybody's kind of into the game reveals. Everybody's into the awards. People thought that the speeches could have been a little bit longer. It's the first time I've ever seen people actually saying, give these developers their 60 seconds in the sun instead of just 30 seconds.
Right.
So all of that is fair. In terms of the content, I was pretty happy with the reveals. I was pretty happy with what I have to look forward to coming up now, especially since Sony and Nintendo largely handle their reveals via their own shows now. So to have a third-party show where I actually got a number of reveals to look forward to is pretty excited about that. And and then we didn't even talk about this. The awards themselves, they were mostly hits. The games that I thought should win certain things won them. Even our beloved Pikmin 4 got Game of the Year or not Game of the Year.
Even though I don't give a hoot about this show. When they said Pikmin 4, I was like, oh, we got him. So
we got one. Yeah. So the complaints about the show aren't about who won something, which is good, because usually that's you talk about a game getting robbed or whatever. And there wasn't much of that with the actual awards. There was some controversy about the nominees themselves, but the actual awards were given out the way that they should have been given out,
right.
which is also pretty good. So that's my take.
That's the Bob take. Okay. All right. Well, I think we're at a good point. I think we've said what we needed to say about the Game Awards. And you know what? We did this semi-timely, which I think we deserve one of these. So I'm doing, this is your back that I'm patting, friend. Just know that.
Oh, and all right.
There you go. Okay, so before we sign off, I do want to say, probably should have said this at the beginning of the episode. I'll probably pop a little graphic up there, but we are on Spotify as well as YouTube. If you want to listen to us in the car and you don't pay for the YouTube Premium, you can do that on Spotify. I do it. It's fun. We've started uploading older episodes, and we're kind of ramping those up to get us into parity with the YouTube stuff. I will say please continue to like and subscribe. The growth on this channel is warming all of our hearts here behind the show, and it's really fun to watch.
We're excited.
And go to Spotify, give us a 5-star review, give us a follow, all that good stuff. And the next time, Uncle Bob, you and I are going to be in the same damn room when we record again. But this was fun. This was an experiment, and I think it was a successful one.
I agree.
So there's that. So let's sign off. Let's go ahead and give the people a gentleman's handshake. I'm going to reach my hand out to yours. Here we go.
Does this work? Is this working?